Sometimes I find myself in my office and see before me a man who is over 60. He tries to appear confident, saying everything is fine, but his eyes reveal something he prefers to keep silent. This gaze is special, slightly weary, a bit lost. It holds a silence inappropriate for the soul of a living person. I am a doctor with over 30 years of experience, and I have seen thousands of fates. But nothing troubles me as much as the unnoticed loneliness that creeps into the lives of men after 60. What is the scariest thing? Not illness, not old age, but the emptiness that comes when suddenly there is no one left around. When children move away, when the spouse grows increasingly silent, when friends leave this world one by one, and days merge into monotony as if time has stopped. Many men hide their pain. They say, "I'll manage, I'm used to it." But inside there is a silence that sounds like a warning signal. I beg you, do not ignore this state. I saw how loneliness can change even one's physical state. The sparkle in the eyes fades, the immune system weakens. The heart tightens not only from pain, but also in a literal sense. Blood vessels spasm, pressure fluctuates, and sleep becomes restless. The psychology and physical state of an adult man are inseparably linked, and this truth should be known to every man. But do you know what is surprising? Among hundreds of patients, I met those who managed to change their lives. They found the strength not just to accept loneliness, but to rethink it, turning it into a point of growth, the beginning of a new stage in life. They discovered meaning where others saw only emptiness. This is what we will talk about today. Please stay with us until the end, as I will share something important that may change your perception of life, especially if you feel lonely. This is something I usually discuss only with my closest patients. A man after 60 is not the end, but a special time when he can finally hear himself. But for that, one must understand the nature of loneliness, its hidden roots, and how they can be changed. I will talk about how loneliness seeps into life, why it intensifies with age, and how step by step one can regain inner warmth, self-respect, and a taste for life. But now let me ask you a question. Honestly, when was the last time you laughed until you cried from joy? When did you feel that you were truly awaited? When you looked at yourself in the mirror and thought, "I am still needed in this world"? If these questions cause you pain, know that you are not alone. Moreover, everything can be changed. In this video, I will explain what needs to be done for loneliness to stop being an enemy and become the beginning of a new, conscious, and wonderfully warm life. And most importantly, at the end, I will reveal a truth that most men realize too late. I often wonder why loneliness feels especially acute for men after 60. Why do women at this age more often find inner peace, communication, and new hobbies, while men suddenly find themselves in a state of confusion? All those aspects of life that once gave meaning, work, family, caring for loved ones, gradually disappear. And when familiar roles vanish, only silence remains. But silence is not always peace. Sometimes it becomes emptiness. A man is used to being a support, bearing responsibility, making decisions. All this creates a protective shell. However, over the years, this shell becomes too heavy. And when the need to prove something disappears, the question arises, who am I now if I'm not working and not earning? Am I not needed in the old sense? This internal crisis is not a sign of weakness, but a natural part of life's journey. It's just rarely talked about. I remember one patient, Nikolai Petrovich. He was 68 years old. After retiring, he lost interest in life, stopped communicating with friends, and couldn't find topics to discuss even with family. He asked more and more often, "What am I needed for now?" Only after a year of long conversations did he confess, "I feel forgotten, not because someone left me, but because I stopped searching for myself." Loneliness is not just the absence of people around, but also the loss of connection with oneself. With age, not only the body changes, but also perception. We begin to see life through the lens of losses. Who has left? What we didn't achieve? What we lost? But if instead of an end we see possibilities, inner healing begins. Loneliness is not a sentence, but an invitation to silence, where one can finally hear oneself. The psychology and body of an adult are connected by the finest threads. When a person feels loneliness, stress levels rise, cortisol increases, negatively affecting the heart, blood vessels, and sleep. Many men complain of insomnia, shortness of breath, and anxiety, not realizing that the root of these problems lies not in the heart, but in the soul. When a person feels that no one is waiting for them, the body loses the incentive to be strong. But as soon as meaning, purpose, and interest arise, everything changes. I watched as men in their 70s began to smile again, fall in love, learn new things, and even start their own businesses. One of them, 74-year-old Alexander Ivanovich, once said to me, "Doctor, I realize that old age begins not in the body, but at the moment you stop being interested in people." This phrase stuck with me forever. Thus, loneliness after 60 is not a disease, but a mirror. It shows where you lost connection with yourself and the surrounding world. If you have the courage to look into this mirror, you can bring life back, because in adulthood, wisdom becomes your main asset. It can replace external achievements with inner depth. That is why it is so important to talk about this now. Freeing oneself from stress, anxiety, and the habit of living on autopilot can reveal an incredible calmness that brings clarity, gentleness, and strength for further life. In the next part, I will talk about the first key step that helps a man over 60 not just cope with loneliness, but turn it into a support. This is a simple, yet significant matter. I assure you, if you start with it today, in a week, you will feel warmth in your soul. If you strive to overcome loneliness, start with the first step. Bring back the habit of speaking in your life. Not just uttering words, but opening up to yourself, to others, to life. Many men after 60 years old shut themselves off. They do not share their feelings, believing it to be a weakness. They are used to keeping everything inside, enduring and suffering in silence. But silence is the very poison that slowly erodes from within. It deprives the soul of movement and the heart of meaning. I often see people come to me with complaints of pressure, insomnia, and anxiety. We conduct examinations and all indicators are normal. Then I ask, who do you talk to heart? The answer is usually the same: no one. At that moment, I realize that the task is not to find pills, but to restore the connection between a person and life. I remember my patient, Viktor Semyonovich. He was a former engineer, a strong and rational man. After his wife's death, he shut himself in, sat at home watching television, never going outside, saying, "Why? It's all behind me." But one day he accidentally met a neighbor boy who asked him to help build a radio receiver. Viktor Semyonovich agreed, and a spark returned to his eyes. A couple of weeks later, he was already gathering a radio club for the neighbor's children. When I saw him again, he said, "Doctor, I understood. I just needed to tell someone something, to share, to pass it on. This is the key. Conversation is the breath of the soul. When we stop talking, everything inside freezes. But as soon as we start, everything comes to life." Try today to call an old friend, write to someone you haven't spoken to in a long time, or just talk to your neighbor on the bench. Not about news or politics, but truly about life, about what you feel, what you remember, what you miss. And believe me, you will feel your chest lighten from these simple words. In my experience, men who learn to communicate age more slowly. They have better memory, stronger sleep, and more stable blood pressure, because conversation restores the flow of blood, emotions, and energy. Even if it seems there is no one to talk to, start with yourself. Write down your thoughts. Keep a notebook where you can simply express yourself. It's not a trivial matter. This is the first step towards healing the soul. The main thing is not to postpone. Try at least for a week, one conversation a day, and you will notice the difference. Loneliness does not leave in silence. It disappears through attention and kindness directed towards others. In the second recommendation, I will talk about what helps not only the soul, but also slows down brain aging. This is something many men underestimate, but it is what restores clarity, strength, and the desire to live. The second step to overcoming loneliness and slowing brain aging is daily movement and participation in life, even in the simplest forms. No, I'm not talking about gyms or marathons. I'm talking about movement as a means to regain a sense of presence in this world. When a person finds themselves alone, their days become monotonous. Morning, meal, television, evening. The body adapts to a static state, and with it, the mind freezes. As a result, the brain begins to age faster. In my experience, those who maintain physical activity and continue to socialize live longer and feel happier. Movement is not just muscle work. It is the energy of life. I remember Sergei Nikolaevich. He was 72 years old when he first came to me. He said, "Doctor, I feel that I have become uninteresting to myself. Everything is repeating." I suggested he start simply, to walk in the park every day, slowly, for at least 20 minutes. To avoid boredom, he should greet people, pay attention to faces, smiles, trees, and the sky. A month later, he returned a different person. His eyes were shining. He said, "You know, doctor, I now greet all the grandmothers at the fountain. They are waiting for me, and I am waiting for them too." That's what really matters. The feeling of being awaited, even for a short, "good morning." This is the cure for loneliness. The brain is structured so that every new impression, new route, conversation, or meeting activates neurons, updates connections, and improves memory. Therefore, movement and participation are more than just a walk. They are training for life. If you feel that stagnation is overwhelming you, start small. Go outside without a specific purpose. Look at the faces of those around you. Greet someone coming your way. Let the first step be awkward. It doesn't matter much. The main thing is that you are back in life. Try to walk at least a few blocks every day. Do this mindfully. Listen to the sounds, feel the air, observe your surroundings. This simple action can restore clarity to the mind and lightness to the soul. Scientific studies have confirmed. People who continue to walk and socialize daily have a more active hippocampus, the part of the brain responsible for memory and emotions. They age more slowly, are less prone to depression, and live longer. So if you want to overcome loneliness, keep moving. Let this become your small daily ritual of connection with life. Don't wait for the right mood. Start, and it will surely come. But there is another aspect that people often overlook. It is subtle, but can destroy a person if neglected. This is exactly what makes loneliness especially dangerous. And this is what I will talk about in the next part. The third, and perhaps most important step. Do not close your heart. Even if it is wounded, even if it seems too late to change anything, do not allow yourself to completely lose warmth. The greatest threat of loneliness is that a person gradually loses the ability to feel. Not because they don't want to, but because they once told themselves, "Enough. I will no longer believe, hope, or love." And thus begins the unnoticed destruction, first of the soul, and then of the body, followed by indifference, illness, and loss of interest in life. I have seen this many times. A man who recently radiated energy suddenly starts to fade. He continues to live, eating, sleeping, watching the news, shopping, but there is emptiness in his eyes. If you ask him what happened, he just shrugs. Just tired. But it's not just tiredness. It's a heart frozen by cold. I remember one of my patients, Andrei Vasilievich. After the divorce, he said he would let no one into his life again. 10 years passed, and he came to me with complaints of insomnia, high blood pressure, and anxiety. We talked for a long time, and at one point, he broke down in tears. He confessed that he thought he was protecting himself from pain, but in reality, he had simply stopped living. That is why I ask you, do not close your heart. Even if you have lost someone, even if you have been burned, even if it seems like no one cares, find the strength within yourself to start feeling again. Perhaps this will not be love in the usual sense, but warm participation, care, interest, gratitude. Call the children, the neighbor, help someone, support with a kind word, give a piece of warmth, and it will surely return. In my experience, emotional warmth serves as the main shield against aging and illness. When a person is capable of empathy, gratitude, and joy, their brain produces serotonin, endorphins, and youth hormones. And when the heart is closed, the body ages faster. I implore you, do not delay. Start today with something small. Remember a person you could write to. Thank them for something that once touched you, or simply say a kind word to the first person you meet. It's not just a gesture, it's an act of inner healing. Loneliness is not overcome by effort. It is defeated by the warmth you begin to give, even when you feel cold yourself. If you combine all three steps we have already discussed, you will get a surprisingly simple yet powerful formula: to speak, to move, and to feel. These three pillars restore the man's inner balance, clarity of mind, and desire to live. But there is something more that I promise to tell at the end. It is the simplest yet profound truth that not everyone understands. It is what can forever change your perception of loneliness. Looking back on decades of work and hundreds of faces, I am increasingly convinced a person does not age from time, but from the loss of meaning. Loneliness is not an enemy, but a quiet voice that whispers, "Look at yourself. You are still alive. You still have time to truly feel life." We have already discussed 3 steps that can bring warmth back to a man's soul after 60. The first is to speak, to open up to the world, not to remain silent. to share. The second is to move, not to stop, to seek presence in each day, even in a short walk. The third is to feel, not to fear emotions, not to freeze the heart, for it is what keeps you alive. These 3 simple steps are not theory. It is what I have observed in real life. Men who begin to speak, move, and feel literally transformed. They straighten their shoulders, light ignites in their eyes, and the feeling of uselessness vanishes. They begin to focus on the present rather than the past. Most surprisingly, people reappear beside them, for warmth always attracts. Now, as I promised, I will share with you the most important truth that many men realize too late. Loneliness is not just the absence of people around, but a lack of response. If you stop waiting for others to understand you first and become a source of warmth yourself, loneliness will leave not because someone will appear beside you, but because a light will ignite inside you. In my experience, this inner turning point is a crucial moment in a man's life when he suddenly realizes, I can be a support, not because someone is with me, but because I exist. It is then that true calmness, wisdom, and harmony come. Try simple actions that help maintain this state. Every day, say at least one kind word to someone. Think out loud, not just to yourself. Take short walks without your phone to feel the air. Smile at yourself in the mirror each morning and remember at least once a week what you can be thankful for. As a bonus, I suggest a simple yet powerful exercise that takes just a minute. Every morning, upon waking, place your hand on your chest and say, I am alive. I am grateful. I am needed. Repeat this 3 times. You will be surprised how these words gradually change your perception of life. Take care of yourself. Your time is valuable at any age. Do not let loneliness deceive you. It is not an enemy, but merely calls you back to yourself. And remember, even the smallest steps can change everything. Take care of yourself and share these thoughts with your loved ones and friends, especially those who are currently feeling a lack of warmth. Let this day be the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter in which you will never be alone because you will learn to be with yourself.